Hello and welcome back to the 100 Jobs Project. I am your host, Katie Monson-Gant, and I am absolutely thrilled to share this conversation that we're going to have today. Please welcome Madeleine to the show. She has been a pilot for over 30 years now, both personally and professionally, and this was a career that when I had the idea for the 100 Jobs Project, wanting to interview 100 people, a pilot was one of the first people that came to mind, and I had absolutely no idea how I was going to connect with someone aside from maybe just walking to like the cockpit of a plane that I was on and asking someone. And so I am so thrilled to be able to chat with Madeleine today. And is this your first podcast that you've been on?
I listen to a lot of podcasts, but this is definitely my first podcast I've been on. Thanks for having me.
I know that you've had an incredible career, and we'll get into that, but I would love to just start with a few questions to get to know you a little bit. I would love to know whether you prefer flying into like a big international airport or a smaller regional hub.
I like the variety. I also love flying to big international places. It's pretty end up in Paris, and then it's also nice to be in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
I mean, I'm 100% with you there. When I travel, sometimes you're in a Paris mood and sometimes you are in a Jackson Hole mood. There's just different pros and cons to each one, and I'm sure that even airports are the same. Do you keep track, actually, of how many airports you've flown into?
I keep a logbook of all the places I've been, so I can always look them up or see who I flew with or when I was there.
But do you have like a number, either of like how many flights or how many airports?
I would have to download it. It's all electronic. I would have to check it out.
That seems like a lot of work to just have that off the bat. So I can't blame you there, but that was one thing that I was like, oh, I don't know. Would a pilot just have like a map of the world in their house with a little push pin for everywhere they've been? So
couple friends that do. I have my logbook electronic, and it will map it all out for you, but I've never actually asked it how many airports I've been to.
Keeping it electronic sounds like a much nicer way to go. Let it do the hard work for you rather than having to, tally everything. You got some search functionality with the electric version.
I've been to 5 continents. Yeah, I don't know how many airports or how many countries exactly.
I mean, 5 continents is impressive. Have you flown some of those like long haul 20-hour flights?
The furthest I've been to South Africa, to Fiji. Those are probably the longest flights I did.
Those both sound like very long flights, and also really, really cool places to visit on my bucket list for sure.
Definitely.
Now, when you're personally traveling, do you fly yourself, or are you flying commercial or private, or are you road tripping? What's your preferred travel style?
Most of the time when we travel for fun, we travel as passengers. We've got a few places we like to go. If it's less than a 6-hour drive, we might drive. But yeah, we like to fly everywhere.
I mean, it's faster. Hopefully you can get through security very fast with all of your pilot credentials. But every once in a while, a road trip is fun. I like keeping it to 6 hours or less on the road. You may have already answered this too with Fiji and South Africa, but most memorable places you've traveled to because of work.
Fiji for sure is one. I flew there. I was there for 8 days, and I have a girlfriend that works at FedEx, and she actually met me down there, and we got SCUBA certified at Magic Island. Nothing I ever pictured doing, but it was the most incredible experience. So that one was really cool. I did a trip to the Galapagos Islands, and got to stay in San Cristobal, like where Darwin was writing his theories of evolution. It was so neat to explore there. I got to do a trip to Rwanda, and the clients that we flew there, they invited us to go hiking with them in the Congo, and we saw this. I did a trip, we flew to Kilimanjaro, and we got to go on a safari for a day and see all the big animals. I mean, those are some of the most incredible.
Just a few off the top of your head. Wow. That's amazing. I can't imagine getting SCUBA certified. And I don't know, I just think of like Fiji as having these gorgeous blue waters where you can see everything. And I mean, getting to go to several places in Africa. And those are just things that you don't get to see every day. And so how amazing that you're able to do that because of what you do for work.
Those were definitely some fun times. And yes, that water in Fiji was turquoise blue. And the very first day, we had to do some stuff in the pool. And I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna like this. I'm gonna be scared. And we're like going out to this island where the reef was, and there was all these dolphins like jumping with the boat, like probably 15 dolphins, and the water's turquoise, and we get out there and it's just like one side has like a surf break and there's surfers, and then the other side there's a coral reef. Just all of the colors. Forgot about being scary.
As soon as your senses are overwhelmed, that fear just flies out the window and you're able to enjoy it. I worked for Marriott for a long time, and I was always on the brand marketing side. So I often worked with influencers or other partner brands or photographers, and I would send them to cool places and tell them what content we needed. We'd get the photos back, and I'd just think, oh, someday I'll get out there. Actually, you know what? I'm going off script a little bit, and I don't work for Marriott anymore. I'll give you that. But you probably stay in a lot of hotels, Marriott or Marriott Bonvoy or Hilton Honors.
So in charter world, I flew so much, I stayed at both all the time.
Yeah.
In the airline world, they pick your hotels, but you can even, you know where you're staying. And I love Marriott. I still have with Bonvoy status, a Hilton one go, but
yeah, no shades either. Both are great, but yeah, I think we just hit platinum status this year, which is exciting.
I like the lounges. They usually have the nicer gyms.
Lounges and gyms, especially when you're on the road all the time. I mean, that's got to be so important. I have one last get to know you question. I'm asking everyone who comes on the show what is in their work bag, because everyone brings different things with them to work. And I feel like it gives you a little snapshot of, you know, what are you like as a person, but also what do you need to do your job? So if there's, you know, 3 to 4 things that you always are throwing in your bag when you're headed to work, would love to know.
For me, the coolest is I have this really cool passport document holder that holds obviously my passport, but also my required documents for flying, my medical and that type of stuff.
Perfect.
This fly level company makes it, and it's fantastic. So definitely, I don't go anywhere without my Dr. Browner's lip balm. And I totally love that, especially, you know, when the air is so dry. I have a really cool flashlight that is required, especially when it's dark out, but I love it. I always have it, stick it in my pocket for cities at night. Just like to have it available. Yeah, I keep snacks in my bag for sure. There's always a Pro Bar in my bag and some Trader Joe's trail mix.
Hard to go wrong with those. No, that's fascinating. I never would have guessed a flashlight. Is it like a small flashlight, or is it more like a headlamp situation?
One of them is pretty small,
Okay.
Maybe about the size of your thumb or slightly bigger.
A flashlight is one of those things that I always keep in my car. It makes sense. You know, you're not driving a car, but you are driving a much bigger piece of machinery. You gotta have some supplies with you. On that note, let's get into how you ended up as a pilot. Where did you grow up? Was it always a dream to become a pilot, or did that come later?
I grew up in San Francisco, just south of San Francisco.
Oh, what part? I have to ask.
Right by the airport in San Francisco.
Gotcha.
When I was younger, I didn't think about being a pilot. I always wanted to just be a surfer, but was never really good at either of those. I still love the beach, still try to surf, still enjoy watching sports. I started flying. I actually took my first flying lesson on my 16th birthday when I was in high school. My dad set up my first flight lesson for me, and we flew from San Carlos, which is about south of the San Francisco airport, out to this airport called Oakdale. And it was right by this lake where I used to go meet my friends. We would go water skiing all the time. It took us 3.5 hours to drive out there. And so my very first flight lesson, I flew out there and it took 30 minutes. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is magic.
Yeah.
I could be out here in no time. So that's when I was like already completely addicted. I was like, I have to figure out how to do this. I got my pilot. I was in high school. My senior year, I was still trying to figure out what to do. And I met somebody that was an airline pilot. And they were like, you could do this.
Yeah.
So I looked into a couple aviation schools. They had in San Jose State had an aviation program. And then there was a university, Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And they had a campus in Daytona Beach. I'm like, I get to go study aviation. I get to still be by the beach, get to travel. So anyways, I applied and I went there, and yeah, it was great.
First of all, so I spent a little bit of time in my early 20s, kind of in the South Bay, so closer to like Mountain View, Los Altos, and made it all around there. I have a friend who still has, a family home down in Carmel, and I just cannot imagine a more beautiful place to fall in love with flying than in the San Francisco Bay Area. Even just you sharing that story of flying to the lake where you guys always used to go water skiing. I mean, I'm falling in love with flying just from that. And then Florida. I mean, what a great place. And San Jose is great too, but if you're already from the Bay Area, it's nice to switch things up. But that's a big move all the way across the country. Did you know anyone who was moving that far, or did you just meet people while you were there?
I just met people when I was there. I didn't know anyone. In fact, I went to a small high school in California, and a person from my graduating class even left the state for college. I mean, they all went to big schools in California, but yeah, I think I was the only one to leave the state, and had to go all the way across the country.
No, that's big. And what was that program like? Were you doing a lot of flight hours, or was there a lot of coursework in the classroom?
It was a lot of coursework. I had gone there with my private pilot certificate, and then the first year I was there, I got my instrument rating. So I waited a whole semester until I first got instructor, and so like the second semester I was there, I was at rating. A lot of the math and science courses were geared towards aviation. The history courses were the history of aviation.
Yeah,
it was exciting. I feel like it definitely prepared me for what I'm doing now, but didn't do a lot of the flying there. I came back in the summer between my freshman and sophomore year and got the Carlos in California, where I had got my private license. When I had gone back to school to go get my seaplane rating and get a tail wheel endorsement, and I was able to get the elective credits for that while I was in school. So that was kind of fun.
Ultimately, I'm glad that you took more probably physics classes geared toward aviation than I did getting my undergrad degree in communications. So that's reassuring that, my pilots, when I'm flying, they do know more than me, especially when it comes to some of the, science stuff that's related.
It's definitely not required to even have a 4-year degree, and it's definitely preferred, but not even in aviation.
Okay.
But I feel like studying something else could give you a good, backup plan, or see if you have, other interests. But it was great. I feel like it definitely prepared me. I got hired right by an airline in 2001, right after that. So I definitely felt ready.
Is that pretty common to be hired right out of school by an airline, or does it often take people a little bit of figuring that out?
It's pretty common, again, right now. So it's an hours of flight time. So a lot of people will get that, flight instructing or doing some other jobs. So now they've changed it to 1,500 hours, or an exception of 1,000 hours if you did go to a school like Embry-Riddle program like that.
So just recapping, it's either about 1,500 hours or sometimes an exception of 1,000 hours if you have like a 4-year degree. But when you were getting hired, some people were being hired with like 200 hours.
250 hours was all that was required then.
Interesting to see how times have changed. I mean, 250 hours is still a lot of hours, but certainly doesn't scratch the surface on 1,000 or 1,500.
People are still getting hired. I flew with a pilot a few weeks ago. She's 23. And she's 25 now, and she's flying the same, Boeing 767 flying, and she is a total rock star.
And I'm sure that, how great for her to fly with you, because there's not a ton of women in the aviation field last time I checked. So great to be able to meet some mentors along the way, and I'm sure you're able to be that for her. On your side, was there ever like a teacher or a mentor or an instructor that really helped you get from point A to point B?
I mean, I had so many great teachers I'm thankful for, but I had this one really great mentor. She actually owned the flight school where I learned to fly in San Carlos, and she was always encouraging me to do the next thing. And she had the new airplanes, and they were like fancy and fun, and and the other schools there had a lot of the older airplanes that were built in the 70s and, required a lot more maintenance. She was always a big supporter. Anytime I was doing something next, and she would hire me to work at the desk there, or she would, give me discounts on my things because I was working there. She actually hired me for my very first job.
Definitely sounds like that was a really helpful person in your life. So it's great to hear that story. And backing up a little bit, was your first job in aviation right after school, or had you worked tangentially like while you were in school in kind of a related field to just get some exposure?
My first aviation job, but my first aviation job was flying at the airline out of school.
Amazing. And how long were you in that? And then what did you shift to next?
I got hired, I was Atlantic Coast Airlines, and it was in June of 2001. At the time, the pay wasn't that great there, but we were making less than $20,000 a year.
Wow.
And I was also working at Uno's Pizza, waiting tables on my days off.
You got to pay the bills somehow.
Yeah, living in a house with a lot of people, and then an apartment with a lot of people, and, made a lot of great friends from there. But I worked there for 4 years, and then at that time, the airline industry wasn't so great. We had, 9/11 happened. A few of the airlines were going through bankruptcy and restructuring, so there wasn't a lot of hiring, and wages were not increasing. The company that I was working for was a United Express and Delta Connection and carrier, and they went out of business in 2005. So I got furloughed from there. Wow. And then I actually went and sold airplanes out of Leesburg, Virginia for about a year. I was for Diamond Aircraft, selling the same small airplanes that I learned to fly in that Karen had bought at that flight school in California. So I did that for a year. And then there was a company that was a charter company, and they were looking for people that had experience in the jet that I was flying at the regionals. So I ended up working there. Those aircraft moved to 3 different companies within the year, and I just moved along with them.
Yeah.
With that job in 2007, and Shai and I started our own company in 2007 doing aircraft management and charter. And so he was running the company and managing everything, and I was flying one of the aircraft that we managed.
So Shai is your husband, just for listeners, and that's also our connection. So Shai was one of my professors at Georgetown. I took a class from him, and as soon as I heard that he's a pilot, started his own company. His wife is Madeleine, also a pilot. And I said, I've got to talk to your wife. So that's why we're here today.
Yeah, we did that for 10 years, 2016. And then we sold that. That's a place where I got to go kind of all over the world and really explore places like some of them you knew about before.
I don't know too much about it. I mean, we were mostly talking about crisis comms in my class and not a ton about, the business. But was that more geared toward private airlines?
Yeah, so that was a lot of charter for individuals or companies, or we would manage individuals or different companies.
Okay.
So we were managing about 6 different airplanes at various times, and when they weren't using them, we would charter them to other people. So we were kind of like property managers, but the property were airplanes that had wings. So we would make sure the maintenance was done on them. We'd make sure that you had pilots. We'd make sure, to schedule everything. And then when you weren't using it, we'd offset some of your costs by, renting it out.
That's a really cool thing and a unique thing that I feel like a lot of pilots probably don't have a chance to do.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few paths that you can take, but I don't know if it's not as just going to a regional or maybe going to the military and then going to an airline, a big airline after that.
Okay.
And then I worked for a charter company for a year, and it's a hard business to make money and do things right. Some places, try to cut corners, and we thought, well, we can do this better and do it the right way. We thought we could, make it better. I think we did a pretty good job for 10 years. And then one of the big companies, nationwide companies, bought our contracts. And at that point, I was already looking into going back to flying in the airlines. And so I had some friends that were working at United and some of the other airlines. The more I talked to them and the more I looked into it, I knew I wanted to get back into the commercial, call it the 121 world airlines.
And so after, working on that company for 10 years, selling it, doing a little more charter for a year, it sounds like that's when you moved and started doing flying big commercial planes for United. I mean, we really covered 15, 16 years in there of starting fresh out of school and moving there. Were there ever points, especially early on, where you thought, I'm making $20,000, I'm waiting tables at a pizza place. Is this really the right thing for me to be doing? Did you ever have any doubts or question yourself a little bit?
I mean, always. I always trying to think about new or, what else might interest me. And especially back then, we were having so much fun. And the friends that we made and the trips that we were doing, I mean, looking back at we really accomplished, make very much. I think the closest I came to doing something else was I actually looked into getting my master's in data science. And I didn't finish it yet, but I got about a third of the way through the course. Thought I would really like the programming part of it. I definitely thought that was kind of boring, but I enjoyed all the analytics stuff.
And you said that was during COVID?
Yeah, because I was like, maybe there aren't going to be more jobs. I had got I had got a furlough notice saying, hey, you're going to be furloughed, which ended up not happening.
Okay.
I thought, I really should have something else. Like, I've only studied aviation. I've only been in the aviation industry. Maybe I should think about something else to do.
Yeah.
Anyways, I took a third of the courses and I kept that and realized that I absolutely love doing what I'm doing. And
honestly, both knowing that you started a program and were kind of like, yeah, this isn't for me. And knowing that you had some moments of doubt in the early days when it was maybe a little bit tougher to meet or make ends meet is just reassuring. I feel like that's something that I have gone through, just so many people go through. And those are two very viable options, is to either, change something, and you can try something and figure out pretty quick whether it's for you or not, or you can just stick with it. And sometimes when you stick with something, even if it is tough, you come out on the other side where you're able to really build something that you are proud of and you're invested in. Getting into what your life looks like now, I mean, what is your schedule like as a pilot? Is it different week to week, month to month?
The cool thing about the jobs here is that you can, there's like something for everyone. Like if you want to do a day trip or a multi-day trip or fly international or fly domestic, like there's so many opportunities. I would say for the last year, pretty much been doing 3-day international trips, and once in a while I'll change it up. Like this month I just did 2-day domestic trips because I got to go fly 5 hours there and see a lot of my family and stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll go to San Francisco this month so I can see everybody. But a lot of times, like, I'll leave here like around 6 p.m., fly somewhere in Europe, Zurich, Paris, Rome, and then spend 44 to 50 hours there and then come home.
You time out after a certain number of hours. You can't just fly nonstop. So you have to be there for a little bit, spend some time there, and then come back. Are you able to put in requests then on like a monthly basis of what kind of schedule you want for the next little bit?
Yes.
Are those honored by seniority, or do people just kind of end up getting what they want?
It's all seniority based. So like, for example, in November, I advertised I wanted to go to Rome and San Francisco, and I got, Madrid and London. And I was like, well, it was like, my fourth choicers.
I mean, decent consolation prizes. When you're working, are you often working with the same first officers or flight crews? And I'd imagine, do you switch off acting as pilot versus first officer, or are you kind of in one role?
We have a captain. Those are usually the, flying pilots. And then on longer international flights, we'll have to have a relief pilot. So we have a third pilot there. And whatever one you're not doing, you're running the checklist and talking to the radios and doing that stuff. So that kind of alternates. And then flights, the time you're in the air, you divide it up into 3 and everybody gets a rest break.
Good to know. I like getting the behind the scenes info on how it all works. And I'd imagine that you're probably working with like different people every week even. So
like for the airplane that I fly, the Boeing 767 and 757, we have at Dulles, we have 100 captains and about 200 first officers. It seems like there's always like new people right now to do with that. There's so much growth in the airline right now. And so, there's bigger airplanes, there's 787 and the 777, and then we have some of the smaller airplanes, the Airbus and the 737, And so there's a lot of people that are, moving right now to the different airplanes as, the grow. So sometimes you end up flying with some of the same people, but a lot of times it's, new faces.
Just like personal question too, do you prefer flying larger aircrafts or the smaller aircrafts?
I was flying the Airbus right before this. It was the A320.
Okay.
That was fun to fly too. It was totally different, but with domestic stuff. It's a great airplane to fly. It's completely opposite Boeing stuff, but the airplane I'm flying right now is a pretty old airplane. And it has a lot of the instruments that I learned to fly on. Not all the pretty glass.
Okay.
So it's fun. It's kind of nostalgic.
That's actually interesting. So I guess when you're flying on the same route for, a month or so, are you typically flying the same plane?
So you get certified in one airplane at a time. So right now I'm only qualified with the Boeing, the 757 and 767.
Okay.
It says it's the same airplane, even though there's a lot of the 757 has one aisle and it's a really long tube with like 3 seats on each side. And the 767 has 2 aisles, in the back of the airplane. So it's a lot wider.
No, okay. So they are actually changing out which, 767 or 757 you're flying on, but you are on those airplanes. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you'll fly an airplane to Paris and that airplane will leave Paris and go to Newark or Houston. And then you'll fly one that came in from somewhere else.
Airline operations just absolutely blow my mind. They're so complex and I am so impressed every time I think about it. I am curious, is there anything about your job that most people wouldn't expect?
We have to go to training every 9 months.
Oh, yeah, I would never have known.
So we do a recurrent training every 9 months, and that we have to go get physical with a doctor every 6 months.
Got to check your eyesight and make sure you're in good shape, not going to have any sort of issues while you're flying a plane. Along those lines, have you ever had any scary moments when you've been flying?
Airplanes have so many redundant systems on the jets that there's always 1 or 2 backup systems that can take its place. I mean, I've definitely had issues where some of those systems haven't worked. And so for example, one night I was flying from Baltimore to Edinburgh, Scotland, and we were over Canada, about to go over the Atlantic, and we got a message saying that one of our 3 hydraulic systems, they use the hydraulic systems for the flight controls and to put the landing gear down, and there's definitely backup systems and 2 other hydraulic systems. But we decided to call our maintenance from the air, and then we elected to stop in Gander, Canada, and have the maintenance there come out and check it out and look at it just as a precaution, because it's all right, if one thing says it's lost systems, are we going to or might lose?
Yeah.
Anyways, we stopped, we got it fixed. The airplane had just come out of maintenance, and it had some air in the hydraulic lines that wasn't bled properly, so it was showing that there's no fluid even though there actually was, so it wasn't as big of a deal as
kind of almost one of those you're driving the car, you get an oil change and you don't hit the reset button so it still pops up. It is always reassuring to know whenever I'm flying that there are a lot of redundancies, and it is an incredibly safe thing. Now, you're on the road a lot. I mean, what's that like managing family relationships, friendships? Is that ever challenging?
With this job now, it's a lot easier than when I was doing the charter. I flew to San Francisco, and I saw my parents and some of my brothers and sisters and some of my cousins. So yeah, that was, and so I try to do stuff like that where I can, see family and friends while I'm flying. Last month I was in London and got to have dinner with one of my cousins and her husband. So I try to incorporate it into work. I've brought my husband Shai on a couple trips with me this year. He came with me to Madrid because there was open seat, and he also came with me to Dublin. I try to incorporate some of those things. Hey, there's a flight that's open and it's going to be nice weather in Dublin. Let's go hiking in Ireland.
Well, definitely sounds a little more manageable when you're able to at least use your flying benefits to see family or plan some family time. But I can imagine that can be a tricky thing for people.
It's kind of nice too, because like if we have something going on, part of the month, for example, I worked a lot at the beginning of the month. I did a bunch of, trips, just 1 day off in between, and then flew again for a couple of days. And right now I have 10 days off, and we're going to go away with some friends. And then when I get back, I'll go to work again on, and I have like 9 days of work in a row. So I'm gonna pay for it a little, able to, move some stuff around to have some fun, or, help take care of whatever else we need to take care of around here.
No, 10 days off sounds like a great stretch. And yeah, maybe you're paying for it on the back end a little bit with 9 days on, but yeah, those days off too, it sounds like you're probably off. You're not having to jump on and do a PowerPoint deck or fill out any spreadsheets. You are off. So I would say that's definitely a perk.
Yeah, I would say, besides the times where you have to go to training every 9 months, we set the parking brake, we leave the airplane, and you're done with work until, you're heading back in. Make sure before you go back to work.
Now, when you're not flying or traveling, how do you spend your free time?
Try to go hiking quite a bit. I've got 2 sisters that live in the area, so I've got 5 nieces and nephews. Try to help them out when I can. We like to go bike riding and hiking, and just out to dinner and visiting friends.
So you stay active, you're outdoors, it sounds like, when you're not in a plane, outdoors, spending time with family. Shifting gears a little bit here, just salary opportunities and opportunities for growth. ChatGPT is always my source, and it's really all over the map. I mean, it sounds like your first job, you're making really $20,000 a year flying. It also sounds like there's a lot of opportunity for upwards of $200,000-$300,000. I mean, does that sound reasonable given your experience?
Yeah, first of all, the regional carriers that I was at before, those salaries have improved quite a bit in probably 6 or 7 years. They've come up to, I think, starting closer to 80. For a while, they even had signing bonuses for a while. I'm not sure those are still around, but decent money at a regional now. And now at the airline, you're starting around 100, like at the bigger carriers, you're starting around maybe 125. And, some of the captains that have been here 12 years or more, probably 500.
Very good to know.
To me, it's definitely a great career right now.
If someone is considering this career either fresh out of college or as a pivot, what advice would you give to them to get started?
Go take a discovery flight. Okay. See if you like it. Just go to the local airport, find a flight instructor, and go do one flight and see if you really love it. Because sure, the money can be great, but if you don't love flying, it can be a pretty boring career.
Sometimes the best advice is the advice that's staring you in the face. If you want to try something, go try it. Especially in a way that, you don't have to commit to a degree or getting flight hours or anything yet.
The bug, you're either going to love it, or it's just,
Well, it does sound like you've had an incredible career, and thank you for all of your insights and advice today. One final question to end on, just thinking holistically about your life, what does success look like to you?
Having the time to spend with family and friends and finding ways to help others.
Well, I wish you success wherever life takes you. And I guess that wraps us up for today. You can find us at 100jobsproject.com, on Instagram at 100jobsproject. If you want to support the show, subscribe, take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram story, leave us a review. You know the drill. The list goes on and on. But we'll be back next Wednesday with another interview. So we'll see you then.